Hello, everyone, and welcome to this next segment on holistic immunity, brought to you by Organic India's Institute for Healthy Conscious Living. And today we have an incredible lineup of doctors from the east to the west, Dr. Ameen, Dr. Minich, and Dr. Junger, ranging from India to the USA to South America and Uruguay. And so we're going to cover a full spectrum of wisdom on the role of supplementation in building holistic immunity. And there's an exciting range of questions we're going to dive into. And to give us a taste of what people can expect in this segment, Dr. Ameen, why don't you give us a sense of why people can be excited and tune into this whole series today?
Sure. I'm going to talk about a concept called nutritional gap. Okay, when I'm talking about nutritional gap, think about what our grandparents ate, the kind of food they ate. It was very high in nutritional concentration because primarily it was all organic and it was very high nutritional density, and they had very little stress and toxic exposure. So the requirement of nutrition was very little, whereas their intake of nutrition was very rich. Whereas in today's world, where there is a lot of wrong agricultural practice and it is inorganic pollution, so the nutritional density in the food has reduced tremendously, whereas on the other hand, our exposure to toxicity, pollution has tremendously increased, which means our grandparents had 3 times more nutrition, whereas they had very little requirement for great nutrition comparing to where we are today. Our requirement for nutrition is like way too high, and our food as such as we are eating, it has very little nutritional density. So this is what I call nutritional gap. And this has to be filled in. This has to be filled in. I mean, I strongly believe in whole food concept, whole food nutritionals. For example, herbs. I rather believe in the whole herb concentrate instead of actually on isolates. On the other hand, is there a question whether do you need nutrition or not? For sure, you need to take something in order to fill this particular gap. That's my point.
Wonderful.
Dr. Ameen, I explain to my patients in exactly the same way, but with a little variation.
Yes.
I don't talk about what our grandparents would do. I would talk about what nature does.
Sure.
Because at some point, we were, just like the rest of the animals on the planet, living and eating according to nature's design. And when we separated ourselves from that, we created the gap that you're talking about. And this gap is for many reasons. One of them is because the foods that we eat now are less in nutritional value because the soils are less charged with nutrients to give to the plants because of the way we farm them. But not only that, now once the food appears on your table already depleted from certain nutrients, then you eat it and you have to digest it and absorb it. And most people walking around don't have a completely optimal digestive and absorption process because of the dysbiosis or lack of certain bacteria in the intestinal flora, because of our intestinal wall being hyperpermeable or leaky, because there's inflammation or activity of the immune system which lives mostly within and around the intestines. So that decreases the availability of nutrients even more. So they end up in our bloodstream even less than what nature designed us to do. So that gap is what we can do with dietary, more pointed and accurate nutrition, but also at some point.
Wonderfully said, Dr. Junger and Dr. Ameen. I do think that you're both spot on when you talk about this gap. If you look at the science of nutritional supplementation, it actually started with animals back in the 1940s when farmers started to give their animals different nutrients in order to make them produce better products and to keep them living longer. So it's interesting that much of human nutrition has actually come from agriculture and animal husbandry practices. And we finally wisened up to figure out that those nutrients can help humans as well. So there is a need for supplementation. Like you both said, this environment that we live in is toxic. We can make the best choices with food, but we're still going to have a gap. Somewhere along the line, we're going to have a gap because our food just does not fit the bill anymore in terms of our nutrients and what our requirements are. We're stressed out. We have environmental toxins like mercury and cadmium and lead.
So
Yes.
clearly we need some support with supplementation. So what is supplementation and what specifically is its role in holistic immunity?
The way I look at supplementation, I use it in two ways. I use it sometimes as treatment and sometimes, or most of the times, also as prevention, just filling the gap. The thing is that the gap becomes bigger sometimes when a person is going through a disease or somebody has their immune system responding or maybe confused with an autoimmune disease. What happens is when all these survival and adaptation mechanisms are triggered, they also require extra nutrients that we would normally require. So sometimes you have to give therapeutic doses, and sometimes you just use them as you would food.
The way that I think about supplements is as very similar to what you said, Dr. Junger. I guess I think about it as a medicine cabinet. We have a medicine cabinet maybe in our bathroom with all of our medicines and our personal care products. Then we go into our kitchen and we have a medicine cabinet of our refrigerator. We have another medicine cabinet of our spices, our spice rack. And to me, another medicine cabinet to empower people is the cabinet that you put all of your powders and your supplements in. And we all need to be rotating and to bring these in depending on our body needs. And so to me, using supplements is like having another medicine cabinet.
Beautifully said. The
And
same concept.
and your fridge is a medicine cabinet too, right?
Indeed. Okay. The way Ayurveda looks at is, for example, even the basic meal plan itself, like typical Ayurvedic diet recommendation comes with, you need to have 6 tastes. Like Dr. Minich works on colors. Likewise, we concentrate on 6 tastes. When you actually take it's like basically salt, sweet, sour, astringent, pungent, and bitter. The primary focus is to have all these tastes in a single meal. When you do that, you basically naturally add a lot of different varieties of minerals, phytochemicals, nutrients. So it actually becomes life-giving. What is missing in today's world is that it's primarily refined on all these phytochemicals. We are talking about carotenoids, lycopenes, lutein, quercetin, zeaxanthins. Very important. When these things are being ripped off from the food, naturally what we are eating doesn't exactly do anything to protect ourselves. So even today, when you're talking about holistic immunity, what determines whether is your immunity going to be better or worse? It's primarily driven by phytochemicals. All right. And unfortunately, we live in a world where we are constantly looking for this magic bullet to take care of everything. It does not work like that. We are in a world where we are seeking the most abundant nutrition, vitamins, minerals, enzymes, and phytochemicals. These concentrations has to be constantly in every meal. As long as we eat in such a way and we seek out all the best of nutrients in a form of supplement or in the real herb, as long as we put that into our body, you naturally have such a robust immune system that no virus can thrive in your body, no bacteria can thrive in your body. And I think that's very vital as part of the topic we are discussing, which is holistic immunity. So I think that's where we need to aim at.
Yeah, I agree with Deanna, and I never thought of calling them medicine cabinets because for me, my supplements, some of them are part of my foods. For example, I add ashwagandha, turmeric powder, and moringa to every salad I make. So for me, it's one more ingredient. It's one more food, but it is medicine. True. So I like this idea of calling it a medicine cabinet and that's why I said the fridge would be a medicine cabinet too.
Phenomenal. In India, in Ayurveda, what we have is 2 concepts. One, among all the herbs, we have one range of herbs which are called Rasayana herbs, which means Rasayana is a Sanskrit term for regenerative. You can take any amount at any age for any long duration, and it will only help to improve and aid, evolve your health. Whereas on the other hand, there are curative herbs, and these herbs are very specifically given in certain deficiency conditions in order to cure disorders. And there is this a little bit difference where that usually get confused. On the other hand, like Dr. Young, as you said, turmeric and ashwagandha or amalaki, these are all regenerative herbs, and they help to improve your health from where you are at this point in time. So just to chip in.
I like what you said, Dr. Ameen.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, what I was going to say is what people do wrong with supplements. Some people I see, they take a handful of supplements and they just toss them in their mouth and swallow. And what you just said, Dr. Ameen, about taste these types of tonics, oftentimes we negate our flavor, our taste, and our connection to the herb, our connection to the vitamin, that there's a certain time of day to take certain things. We take vitamin D during the daylight hours, not the nighttime hours. We take melatonin during the nighttime hours, not the daytime hours. So there's a science to supplementation that is actually quite sophisticated. And if we continue to take things over and over again, the body can stop to see that signal. So we have to change it up so that the body can see that fresh. So I think that there's a smart way to supplement. It's not just taking more, it's knowing how to take your supplements.
And how to rotate them. I agree. And one more concept I want to throw out there. Deanna talks about a lot about colors. Dr. Ameen talks about colors, right?
You like colors. Yes.
And you talk about it in more than one way, right? For example, you talk about it in auras and chakras, but we talk about it too in terms of the biodiversity of the foods that we're eating. And Deanna coined this phrase, which is catchy, which is "eat the rainbow," right?
True.
He talked about the benefit of biodiversity, and as per color, as per species of plants that you're eating. Now, biodiversity seems to be a subject now that is permeating every aspect of our lives. Like from the aspect that we see that certain species are extinguishing, and so we're losing the biodiversity of species in the planet. But such a problem also exists at a micro level. We're losing microorganisms, right? And then too many of one type grow in outside and inside, right? And we talk about the biodiversity of the intestinal flora. We talk about the biodiversity. And I also would say that we have to have diversity in our supplementation.